Welcome back to the Morning Mist 99, above and beyond schizophrenia. It's where we're coming from, it's where we are, it's where we're going. Above and beyond. Now for this video, I wanted to talk about medications. And medications is a pretty big topic, I think, right? There's a lot to it, a lot of parts to this. And I've been avoiding it for some time because my whole thing is, for myself, I guess, I couldn't be on medications, right? I took medications for some time and I stopped. I stopped in a way that perhaps I shouldn't have stopped, right? I stopped at cold turkey, right? Just dropped it. It's somewhat of a controversial topic as well, with some people all, for medication is that's the way and that's the only way. Some no medications at all, right? It's all bad, it's all toxic, it's all, avoid it. And then there's some like myself who might be in the middle of those two thoughts and opinions, right? But why is it medication now something that is meant to help us be better, overcome sickness, and come back to ourselves and actually be more productive in society? Why is this have such a controversy, right? Why are some people so against it? Now, I listened to the discussions of people, and I looked into this myself, and I have my own experiences, right? So one of the things I could say is that medication, it has at least psychiatric medication, and the whole psychiatric system itself has a bad look when you look at even with movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right, which was a very popular movie where it just shows like a critique of the whole psychiatric system, and where people are forced into this system, forced to take medications, forced to undergo all kinds of therapy, even electroconvulsive therapy, and forced lobotomy. So with that being part of medication, being part of this system, it already has a bad look, right? So there's that image just of you being zombified, right? And next you have big pharma and money, money, money. Whenever you have business involved in something, there's going to be room for corruption, right? And especially when you have big corporations. Something I learned while looking into this: electroconvulsive therapy, one of the way, or ECT, one of the way that this was misused was by doctors recommending this for patients and administering this, having this administered to patients, not because the patients needed this treatment, but because the doctors would get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year the more they recommend it, the more patients they have undergo this treatment, right? So when you look at, and we know with medications and prescriptions, there are incentives, sometimes financial incentives to have prescribed certain medications, right? So when people look at these things, you start to question why you're giving certain things, right? We're being given something, or why other people are being given these things, right? Because it causes us to distrust the system that is there, that's supposed to be helping us, because are they really helping us, or are they helping corporations? Are they helping themselves to financial gain? So that's another interesting point in this topic surrounding medication. Then we have the toxicity of some of these medications, right? You have some serious issues that can come with the long-term usage of these medications, right? So patients seeing these, it makes you a little nervous, Some of these are, you got anxiety, you got cognitive dysfunction, you got hyperglycemia, you got metabolic syndrome, tardive dyskinesia, weight gain. These are some potentially serious issues that can, diabetes, dementia worsening, right? So as a patient looking at these, nobody wants to. Now I know side effects come with all kinds of medication you're taking, but uh, you are, most meds, you hope not to be on it for long term that have these kind of side effects. But with schizophrenia, and it's being labeled something as it's chronic, you're gonna have for life, and you have to take these medications for life. It's not something that any reasonable person looking at this or wants to, isn't a bit afraid, right? So that's another reason why we might just say, you know what, I'm gonna put this away, because is it gonna do me more harm in the long run than doing me good right now, right? So somehow we have to address this issue. If we want patients to take medications, then it can't be things that have these dangerous side effects that's waiting for us in the long run, right? So it's kind of understandable why people want to come off these things and not risk having those issues come up later on. Now, the last issue that I'm going to talk about, and there's perhaps more. If you have any other thoughts or reason why you may not want to take medications, or why maybe someone might want to consider it, these kind of antipsychotics, feel free to leave them in a comment section. But this is the last one I'm going to touch on, and that is personal experience. There are potential long-term effects, then there are immediate side effects, right, that we feel in the process of taking medication. For me, I was taking medication. I didn't know this was the medication that was causing this. I thought this was actually the schizophrenia. When this was happening to me, my skin felt like a wet sponge. I would poke my skin like this, and it would just feel like it was all gross and watery, almost pussy, and I felt like my skin would just sink in and it just stay in. And I'm just there poking myself all over the time, just because I was so just what the heck is going on? I thought it was the demons that were messing with my head and making me feel that way, right? But I didn't understand it was the medication, the symptoms and a side effect of the medication. And then felt so like shaky. Everything was so shaky. When I would uh, turn one direction, the environment would still just go shake like this. When I got up, everything just go, just keep wobbling, and everything was shaky. Every time I moved, everything just kept going, bouncing. When I stopped, it just continued moving, right? So this wasn't a good feeling. Who wants to live like that? I also felt so disconnected from everything. Like I was in the shell, and I couldn't contact anything or anybody. It was just like I was trapped inside, right? I was trapped, and I couldn't connect. I couldn't get outside, and like the way you feel with your body, and you feel emotionally or whatnot. You just can't connect to anything, right? It was always so distant, and that reminded me of the way I felt sometimes with schizophrenia, right? That's why I thought a lot of these things I didn't think about the medication. I thought it was the illness itself that was causing me to feel these things, because a lot of that I felt with schizophrenia. There's times where I never had that necessarily shaky feeling, but where my peripheries were cut off. My peripheral vision was cut off, and I was just tunnel vision, right? And it's like there were stars around, uh, but all I could see was straight, and these stars on the outside. It was weird. Can't explain it, but when I having this shaky vision thing, it was almost similar to that. The same like starry, like when you're dizzy, like that was around, right? And it was like the same thing with this medication, and that's partly also why I thought it was just in this psychotic phase that I was in, right? it somehow it meshes with that pretty closely sometimes. So it's very interesting, but it's not something that people want to live with or want to continue to experience these kind of effects. You know, when it makes you eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and you're like a bottomless pit that can't be, filled, and it just so many of those issues, and nobody wants to take something that's going to affect them on that level all the time, right? So then you got to take other medication to combat the side effects of these medication, and then there's the issues with those medications. So it's just a big problem that people think about, and they just choose to not continue to experience these, and this is a real thing, real things. And so it's again, we gotta. I know they're giving the best they can, but at the same time, it's not good enough if they want people to continue to take medication. It doesn't work for long term. There's another side effect I thought that I should mention. I'd forgotten it. I'm just gonna add this in. I felt like the top of my brain was dead, like it was dried up. Whenever I try to think, it would hurt. Right? I couldn't access my brain. I couldn't think the thoughts I wanted to think. So I would have to just move and do things without thinking. I'd have to interact with people, and I couldn't think because whenever I tried, it would hurt. And I thought that was just the demons messing with my head. I was haunted by a lot of demons, and I thought that was just them. So I kind of just, cursed them and kept going. But it was just looking back and looking at some of the side effects. That was something off the medication. Another thing off it that is really frightening, and it was frightening at first, right? I just couldn't think, and it's one of those things where people experiencing this. Nobody wants to be in these kind of medications when you're feeling like that. Your mind hurts. You're trying to think, and your brain's hurting. That makes you want to stop, especially if you want to pursue anything in life. You can't do anything if you can't think, right? You just let around, and I did feel like a zombie a lot of times. I was walking around in that hospital on these medications. I just felt like a zombie, especially not be able to connect to anything. I can't think. You just can't connect. You just gotta, I'm drooling like a friggin' zombie, So nobody wants to live like that. Now, the reason, it's a little story I'm gonna tell you. The reason why I stopped taking medication, right? Or yeah, the reason why I stopped the way I did, the reason why I came to this point, because I had decided to, like make some gains in my life, right? After I went through my whole downward spiral and everything. So I'd made some gains since then, and I was actually got my driver's license, right? I managed to get my driver's license, and I got a car, and I had a job, right? I was working part time at this department store, right? I was working in shipping and receiving. One day, I was driving home, and I was going this road to my house. I lived at maybe 5 minute drive from work, right? 5-10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes. So I'm driving home, and then I just pulled the parking brakes. There's a 50 kilometer road, I think, 50-kilometer road, and I think in miles, I think that would be like 30 miles. I think if you're in America. So I pulled the parking brakes, and I just hear this screech, and I just put it back down, and I was like, what the heck? Why did I do that? I thought I was parked. I'm driving and I thought it was parked and my car was rolling for some reason, and I just pulled the parking brakes. I'm like, oh my gosh, my car is rolling. I was like, what? I was confused. Fortunately, it was a slower road, and it was a slower time. I was working only 4 hours, so I was going home. It was like 8 to 12 shift, right? And like I said, it wasn't a busy road. So I got home, and I immediately went. Something just said to me, just look at the medication, right? And I went in and I looked at the medication because I was just puzzled what the heck I was. I did that, right, going through with my mind, and something just says look at the medication, and I went to I got through to the door, and I immediately went to the cupboards where my mom kept it, right, and I looked, pulled it out, read the side effects, and it's all some. I never looked at it before. It's my first time looking at it, and it was like, oh my gosh, you know. But one thing struck me. It said confusion can cause confusion, and it blew my freaking mind. Blew my mind, not because I experienced confusion through the medication, not just because of that, because one of the big issues with me when I was going through psychosis since I was in high school, right? There was bouts of this. I would just get confused. What the heck is going on? I would see demons everywhere. I'd see witches and and all this on people's faces, and I would just get like really paranoid and confused, and I don't know what's going on. And all the way up going through psychosis, that was a major part of it. Confusion haunted me. I would just get so lost, not knowing who I could trust, who's, with the people around me. Are they really real? Are they, just completely lost and confused, fearful because of that. And here, the medication that I'm taking that is supposed to be helping me listed confusion as a side effect. How the heck does that work? The very thing is supposed to be curing me from, it's I had to laugh. I honestly laughed because there's just nothing else I could have done. It was just that mind-boggling to me. I laughed because I was no longer going to take that. There's no way. I could not trust myself driving a vehicle or work, maybe working with heavy equipment and so forth. I couldn't trust myself. And that incident in the road proved it. So I said never again. And I told my mom, and it kind of went to the old issue, and she, telling me not to, and then, dealing with the doctors and so forth. But that was it. And that's the reason why I stopped medication the way I did. That's the reason why I did it like that. And if you are in a place, like, I'm not telling anyone to stop their meds because of these things. There's a proper way to do stuff. And if you are at a place where you feel like you want to stop your meds and that you're, in a good enough place for that, always better to do that with the approval and guidance of your medical professional. That's the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to kind of work with them and check up with them because my intent was to show them how I was going to do this because they thought that I was going to fail. And I knew I wasn't going to fail. And I wanted to show them something that they totally did not understand, and they like when the counseling and stuff they totally missed, didn't give me these kind of instructions, but I knew that there was a way through it, and I wanted to work with them, but just the doctor I was dealing with, he was just kind of wasn't for it. He expected me to be back in the hospital within 6 months, so I'm like, I just want to you know, force anything on him, so I just left and haven't been back. Um, but I think if you're, you know, in a hopefully you're with a better doctor than I was, and you can work with them and have their guidance, and you know that way they can just keep tabs on you, and you can at least show them how you're doing, and they can instruct you, they can help guide you and so forth. So I think that's the best way to do it. That's the way I wanted to do it. Now, there's a big difference between why I stopped medications the way I did, right? And the way a lot of people stop medications. I didn't do it just willy-nilly. I understood something, right? I understood something. A lot of people who stop medications, they do so with the and hoping everything works out, which is not really hope. It's more wishful thinking. It's a difference. Real hope is not just wishing. Real hope is actually built on something. You understand? Real hope, there's a reason for hope. You need a reason to have hope. If you don't have a reason to be hopeful, then you're just wishing. It's a big difference. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I don't support the all against meds philosophy or thought. I think medications serves as a support. And if you don't have the support of medication, what are you going to support people with? Right? Medications also are maybe more necessary at the where the person is in that throes of psychosis. Right? You're confused, you're paranoid, you're delusional, hallucinating, all these things, and you're just, you're bought into this whole thing, and you don't know what the heck you're doing or where you are, and seeing people as witches and demons and dragons and whatever the heck you see them as the government spying on you and after you, and you gotta all that stuff that we have going through our minds. I think medications are good in those instances. They're good to maybe pull people back in and grounded, and kind of come to understand that, okay, this is what's happening and where you are, and so forth. So I think they may be necessary in those instances, and more so for a short term period. I would say it would be better rather than a long term. But but this is where people are failing. I think this is where the health care, the psychiatry or psychology or whatever the heck people are doing for their therapy is failing, because I don't think they're building, they're teaching people how to build the proper supports within for when they step off, right? And if people can do that, they can do that while on medication. And then if they later on deem like they want to come off it, they'll have the necessary equipment inside so that they can handle what comes after. And this is so with people who are completely against it, then what do you do? What should people do if they're not on medication? Right? What are you offering them? And that's the question. If everyone stops medication, what do they do when psychosis comes and start tearing away at their minds? Right? So for me, I had that support built inside. I had the understanding, the awareness that I was ill. And from that, I had the hope to recover, which I was already building up from while I was on medication, right? So the hope that was built on a faith and knowing, right, which is some principles. Mine was on biblical principles that I knew to be true. I placed everything that those were true, right? And when I stepped out, and because if you're gonna step off the support of medication, then that disappears. And then you're walking, and if you don't have something else, the ground is gonna disappear from underneath your feet, and you're gonna come crashing down. So for me, when I went out and that disappeared, I knew I was standing on something. So even when the terrors came, I wasn't afraid because I understood. I my confidence was in more the thing that I was believing in and hoping in and trusting in, that this was more real than any of the things that were coming at my mind. Right? So I could have kept walking. I wouldn't fall. I was standing on something. Right? So if people don't have this support inside, this transcending principles, things to believe in, can't be physical. It's got to be something that's it's tangible, but not in the sense of material, right? But I think that's what the people need to be counseled on, building up these things so that they can meet the challenge on the battlefield of where it challenges them, which is the mind, right? I see medication as like a tool in the toolbox, right? I'm a tradesman, so I might go on a job and I might have to do work on something that maybe I got to use a tool that's big and awkward and bulky or whatever. I may not like it, right? There might be risk with using certain things, so I have to get training on it, right? And then I got to take all the precautions, and then I got to go out there and I got to use the tool, but the tool is not for the entire job. It's just a part of the job. And once that portion of the job that requires that tool is finished, I put the tool back in the toolbox. And this the thing is, the job isn't done simply because I'm finished with this tool. I have to grab another tool because there's other work that needs to be completed, right? So this is what I view medication as, is a tool in the toolbox, and it's not something that I feel needs to be necessary for the whole job, right, of restoration of the mind. I think it's an important part, perhaps a necessary part, and sometimes somebody might want to use it for the whole job. If it's a tool that you can use, like you have a screwdriver, and you can multi bit driver or whatever, you can use it for a lot of different parts of the job, right? So some people can use it for that. It depends on the individual, but they have to decide what they want to do, what they want to use, and they have to consider the risks, and they have to consider the alternatives, and they have to decide what they want. But all I know is, if that person only has confidence in that tool, in medication, nothing else they're going to use is going to help them, right? Because they're not going to give their hearts to it. And if you cannot give your heart to something, your confidence won't be effective for you, right? It won't be effective. So you have to have confidence in what you're using. And but it's a choice people are making, and they do so with they should be aware and the knowledge, right? So that they can make a good decision. But I do feel that people should be built up on some solid principles and some solid instructions, that should they get off medication. And you ever see those cartoons where, like Bugs Bunny cartoons, where you see the guy and he's running after Bugs Bunny or something, and then Bugs Bunny or whatever might just hide out the way, and then this guy keeps running off, and there's like a cliff, and the guy will keep running off over the cliff, and he'll keep going. until he won't fall, even though it's over the cliff. He's not running on anything. But he'll stop at some point and he'll look down and sees that there's no ground. And that's when he falls. Right? When his mind recognizes that the ground isn't there. Right? I'm not saying it's going to happen in the natural world, but that's what it's in the mind. That's how it is. When you, with the medication, you're taking it and it's the support underneath you. But what happens now when you're running or you're walking and then you stop medications, right? And then what happens is the symptoms come and it just says boo, boo. And what do? You thought you're not on medication. That's the support, right? You start to get afraid. Your heart starts to beat, and it might start slowly or it might hit you at once. But it fills you with this anxiety and this stress, and you look down. There's nothing there. The meds aren't in your system, and you haven't took it in how long. What do? Right? There needs to be something that even though you're off that ground, you're not going to be like that cartoon character that's going to look down and see that, there's nothing there, and then starts falling. Because that's what happened to a lot of people. They'll go and they'll good after stopping the meds, but then the symptoms starts coming back and they get afraid. They get shaken. And what happened? They go crashing right down. You need something else. You must be built on something else. The house has to be built on something solid, or else when the storm comes, it's going to come crashing down. Just to reiterate, I am not against medications. I'm not against psychiatry. I'm not against any of the sorts. I am for better medications. I am for better psychiatric care. I am for people having who have schizophrenia having better lives and better outcomes and more hopeful outcomes. I think my stance is just that people need to have more than just the family support when they're coming off their meds. Need to have more than just simple coping strategies. There needs to be a better understanding of what is happening and what they need to do in how to resist the pull of psychosis on their minds, right? I think this is an area that psychiatry or therapy needs to focus on, because whatever the mind creates, the mind can destroy, right? I firmly believe this, and I believed it enough to make it work for me, right? And I know it can work for others as well. If we have knowledge of the illness in our lives, we have that awareness, then knowledge of that knowledge is not enough to have us resist the pull of psychosis. Knowledge must be met with understanding, right? We need understanding on how to act, how to think, how to resist the symptoms of schizophrenia. This is what I'm trying to put forth with this talk, my channel, with this talk on medication. I think it's necessary for people to have the proper supports in place, and it's more than just a lot of the things that we have already. It is built up on understanding. That's so important, more important than people may realize, right? The mind is more than just a place where your thoughts come and your imagination, this and that. If you can have thoughts that are so real that they can affect us to the level that they do, what happens when you take control of this place? What happens if you direct those thoughts? What happens if you direct this imagination? What happens if you focus intentionally and how to use this space, right? There's no, it's more than just chemicals misfiring in your head or something like that, right? As long as they just leave it as that, there's nothing you can do, but you have to recognize that the mind is more, vastly more than just chemicals. There's a great power to you. And so I think that's where I think a lot of folks needs to be. But I'm not against medications. I just want to make that clear. If I haven't already, I just think it's a tool in the toolbox, and there are other tools as well that we need to use, we can use, and but my hopes is that we're able to build up, we're able to move forward with the knowledge, with the understanding, and the wisdom that can come from understanding, and we can take back our lives and to really truly recover from mental illness, where we're no longer just managing, but we are completely free and thriving. I 100% believe that's possible. I never saw any less from myself, and I got exactly what I what I expected, and that's powerful right there as well. You get what you expect. So, yeah. Until next time. Later.